Hey everybody, Bill Sky, the C++ guy, back again, and this time we're going to talk about while loops. We're also going to be talking about do while loops and for loops in upcoming videos, but the first one is while loops, mainly because I think this is the most simple one, and it feeds off of my previous video, which was menus in the switch statement. So if you didn't watch that video, go ahead and watch that video because I actually have a loop in there, which is not a real loop. Well, I guess it is, but it's not a industry accepted loop because I used gotos. But go ahead and take a look at that to get prepared for this one, and then we're going to go ahead and modify that unacceptable loop into a real while loop. So let's get started. Okay, so I've got my Eclipse up here and running, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up the project that we did in the switch statement video, and let's quickly go over this. So really what this is a very simple program. It simply prints out a menu, asks the user to type a value in to pick which menu item it wants, and then, oh, I got a little bit of a problem here. And then it goes through a switch statement that checks to see what the user typed in, and then it goes to the top of the loop if the user did not type an X. So this program keeps going. Now I need to make a change here because I have an invalid value in the switch statement. So let's go ahead and fix that. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this running. So I went ahead and built OK. Now let's go ahead and run it as a refresher as to what this is doing. So if I type Z, the switch statement says invalid menu option. If I type H, it prints hello there. If I type G, it prints goodbye. If I type I, it asks for an integer. I type in an integer, tells me what I typed, and then if I type X, it leaves the program. So you might say this is a perfect menu. Well, it's really not accepted industry-wide. Gotos create what they call spaghetti code. It's a bad idea to use gotos. So they have different logical structures, one of which is called the while loop. So instead of having a goto up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loop which is going to test whether or not the user typed the letter X. So I'm going to say, so the while loop is called while user response is not equal to X. Now I'm going to say to upper user response because I don't want to have to check to see whether or not it's lowercase or uppercase. I just want to check to see whether it's uppercase. So I'm going to use the toUpper function to make it uppercase temporarily for this check. So what's going to happen here, and Eclipse is doing some stuff for me that I wish it didn't. What this is going to do, it's going to say do the contents of the loop while the user response is not equal to uppercase X. So if it's equal to Z, G, H, P, whatever the user typed in, as long as the user didn't type in X, then the loop will continue to execute. Now to make sure that it executes the first time, I have to give it a value, and I'm just going to give it a value of space when I created the variable that I'm testing. Also notice I got rid of the label. I got rid of the label, which was the goto situation. So now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to take a look at the goto right here. And we don't have a goto anymore. We want to get rid of that because the menu loop label is gone. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off the while loop. And I no longer need this. I no longer need the check to see whether or not I typed an X because the while loop is handling it for me. So I'm just going to delete that. Now I could have commented it out, but I'm just going to delete it. And everything else is pretty much the same. It's nothing's going to change. Now let me see. I've got to, oh, okay, there we go. So my code's much cleaner now. All right. So let's go ahead and build and run this, and let's see how it works. So I'm going to type a Z, invalid menu option, that's from the switch. I'm going to type an H, looks good. I'm going to type a G, a lowercase g. I'm going to type a lowercase I, And now I'm going to type in X. And the program ends. So once again, a while loop is what they call a preconditioned loop. It means that it's going to ask the question before it does the innards of the loop, whatever is inside the open and close brace for that loop. And you can see now why I like to comment my close braces, because I'm past where the loop is defined, and this tells me, oh, that is the close brace for the while loop structure. Now there's other things that you can do in a while loop. Like for instance, I could break out of the while loop. So at some point I could say break. So if I wanted to do this, if to upper user response is equal to X, break. Now what that break will do is it will leave the loop. It's not inside of a switch. Our switch statement is done here. But what this is going to do is this is going to break us out of the loop. Now what is wrong with this? Did I get the variable name wrong? Let's get that fixed. Let's see what my compile error is. Oh, I didn't close the parenthesis there. Okay, so let's save it and build it now. All right. So this is a way to directly jump out of a while loop by using the break. Now we don't need it because we actually have the condition inside. The condition that says keep going. If it's true, it keeps going. So because we've got that condition in there, we don't need this, but you can put in a break. You can also do a thing called continue. And what the continue will do is the continue will just jump right up here to the condition of the while loop. No matter what you're doing, it'll jump up there. Like for instance, if I go in, now let's go ahead and build and run this and make sure that it works okay. So there's H, there's G. Okay, it looks good. It looks like it's working well. If I put a continue right here, which is a bad idea, and you'll see why. If I put a continue right there, watch what happens. Well, it doesn't really do the switch statement. Now it does do the X because we have the condition up here, but the continue is almost like a goto. It's a goto that says go back up to the top of the while loop and do another increment of the while loop. So this is really bad programming because your program's not doing anything. So continue isn't really needed here. However, you could do something like this in there. I think that's relatively acceptable. Now, some people would argue you should never use break or you should never use continue. And in this case, they're right. You don't have to use those with this if, but you don't even need the if because we've got the condition inside of the while loop. So I said earlier that a while loop is a preconditioned test, which means that it tests the condition before anything happens inside of the loop. If the condition results in a true, it does what's inside the loop. If the result of the condition is false, it leaves the loop and it jumps down past the loop close brace. So once again, you don't need this. However, in certain circumstances, you might want to break out of a loop or you might want to continue it. Now, the break for a while loop is different than the break in a switch statement. The switch statement can almost be thought of like a loop. It's not really a loop. It's more of a domain of code. And so what the break does is it takes you out of the switch statement, but it's not really a loop. Now, if you wanted to get out of the loop by using a break from within the switch, you really couldn't, because then you have to do something like this. And that's how you could do that. Now, when might this be necessary? Well, I actually like to code these while loops this way. Instead of saying while condition, I will just say while true. And while true means it will run forever. So if I say while true, I absolutely have to have some kind of a condition here inside of my while loop to leave the loop with a break or with a continue. And really, in this case, I don't even need this else. However, it's always good to have an else to complete your logic. So once again, there's different ways of doing this. I would probably get a lot of pushback that this is not a good way to do it. I would beg to differ. I've done testing. It doesn't make your code any larger, any smaller. However, you might want to abide by whatever the company is and whatever their standards are with doing loops. So that's a while loop. Hope you enjoyed this. The next one's going to be do while loop. Hope to see you at that video.